Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and this wrap-up for August is going to be a little bit quicker, hopefully, than my other ones because, alas, I only read 4 books. Well, actually I read 5, but one of them was a DNF, meaning I did not finish it, and I will talk about that one as well. But only finishing 4 books in a month is really, it's for me, it's really bad. That's like horrible. So I feel very ashamed, but at least it's 4. It's not like 1 or anything, so I guess it's okay. I mean, if you read 4 books in a month and that's like your normal, then that's awesome, and you should be really proud to read 4 books in a month, but for me, that's like half of what I normally read, and this is like the worst like reading month in terms of how many books finished that I've had like since I started booktube almost. I'm not sure. So anyway though, at least they were mostly pretty awesome, so I'm just gonna talk about them. So the book that I DNF'd, and please don't hate me, please hear me out, is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, and that is hugely disappointing to me because I loved A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first one, for those of you who don't know, because that one was so fast-paced and just really interesting the whole way through. But this one I felt just dragged on, and I just found myself seriously not caring. I feel like the main thing that took away from it for me was the fact that Feyre has powers now, and she just seemed too powerful, and a lot of the stuff that she could do it seemed to me like a convenient plot device. So the whole book, I felt like, was full of convenient plot devices, and so I just did not like that at all. And I mean, the first book was really about like her overcoming adversity, basically, and then this book was just kind of like how badass she was. And a lot of the plot just felt like really afterthought, and it became a little bit obvious to me, like painfully obvious, that a lot of the stuff in here wasn't thought of until the first book was already written, which to me just, I mean, it's okay if somebody writes that way, but when it's this painfully obvious to the point where it makes very little sense, it just sucks. And so I was really bummed out by that. And then there were a lot of things about the writing style in this one that kind of caught me, like struck me as just, you know, taking away from the reality of it a lot. Like, for example, the descriptions of clothing in it reminded me a lot of, have you guys read that fan fiction that's like a self-insertion into a Harry Potter fan fiction where the chick is like a vampire? It's a really, really well-known like bad fan fiction type thing, so some of you guys might have read it. If not, I'll link it down below, and you should read at least the first chapter. If you're having a bad day, it'll make you laugh or something. But basically, in that fanfic, like every chapter starts off pretty much with her describing what she's wearing, and it's always pretty much the same. It's like, and it was a corset, and it laced in the back, and blah-de-blah, and it's always basically the same thing. So the descriptions of clothing in this really made me think of that fanfiction, and so I thought, like, okay, so if something about a book that from a series that you have liked before, like that you liked a book of before, reminds you of a terrible fan fiction, that's not a good sign. Okay, so I'm actually going to read to you the passage that made me close this book on page 405. 2 shafts of fabric that hardly covered my breasts flowed to below my navel, where a belt across my hips joined them into one long shaft that draped between my legs and barely covered my backside. This does not tell me what the clothes look like at all. Like, at all. I have no idea what is being talked about in this paragraph. So that's kind of a lengthy description of an article of clothing that you still don't know what it looks like when you're done reading it. It doesn't make any sense. So unfortunately, that was kind of just the last straw, and I already didn't care, and I was already really not invested in the relationship between Feyre and Rysand at all. Like, I didn't care what happened, I didn't care about any of the people in it, and so at that point I kind of was just like, whatever, man. So if you liked this book, I'm very sorry. I do not want to offend, but I just personally really didn't, and I am sorry. I actually am sorry. Not like my dislike of 50 Shades of Grey or something. Like, I'm actually very sorry. I really wanted to like this book, but I just don't. I can't help it. The first book that I actually did finish this month was Anne of the Island by L.M. Montgomery, and this follows Anne as she goes off to college. This one was pretty interesting. It had a lot of cool stuff in it, and a lot of weird stuff about, like, what kind of weird time period is this where $5 can buy you like a house or whatever. A large portion of this book, though, is dedicated to the fact that Anne and her friends are all being proposed to by everyone and their mothers. Well, maybe not their mothers, because it's all just men proposing to women, because apparently, like, 16 years old is old enough to get married. And Anne still, like, will not admit to herself that she is in love with Gilbert Blythe, and so she just, like, goes off with this other dude and, like, tells Gilbert no. And so throughout this entire book, I was literally just like, come on, Anne, just, like, admit that you love Gilbert. Everyone and their mothers who's ever even, like, seen this book knows that you end up with him anyway. Like, please just, you know, get with the program, like, come on. And so there was a lot of that, and some of that was actually really entertaining, but some of it was really, like, almost painful, because you kind of wonder, like, oh shit, what is she doing? Like, she just doesn't know what love is, and that's why she's making, like, a horrible decision and, like, not being with Gilbert and being with some other dude instead, and blah de blah. But, like, it did kind of go on for a little bit long, but overall I really enjoyed this book a lot. Next, I read The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, and this is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy, and I liked this one a lot more than Mistborn, The Final Empire, even though I really liked that one too, but this one just does a lot better of a job of really plunging you into the action a lot more, and I don't know if that's just because the world has already been described to you in the first book, but I feel like just a lot more happened in this one, and it was less kind of planning the heist and more kind of, holy shit, we're being invaded, what do we do, and all this stuff, so I really can't wait to read the third one. And finally, I read Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. This was the third time that I've read this. The second time was in German, though, so it's a little bit of a different experience. So this was a buddy read with Karen from A Simple Cup of Tea. Really, really like this one. I think that I like this one better than The Chamber of Secrets, which is kind of surprising, because The Chamber of Secrets is the one that, like, really kept me up at night the first time I ever read it and everything, and, like, really freaked me the hell out. But this one just, I don't know, I feel like a lot more happens in it, and there's a lot more funny stuff, and and there's a part in here where Ron calls the telephone a Fellitone, and I cracked up so hard, especially when Hermione says, like, no, it's a telephone, maybe you should take Muggle studies, and all this stuff. I just cracked up. And my fiance in, like, a different room, like, heard me laughing, and he was like, what are you laughing at? And I was like, Fellitone! I did also listen to the audiobook of The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and I decided to read this because, well, when I was in high school, I read a lot of kind of similar things, like the Book of Five Rings and some other stuff, just for no reason other than fun, I guess, but somehow The Art of War just was never one that I read before, and it just kind of just occurred to me that I had never read it. So I listened to the audiobook, and I literally listened to it just while I decided to go take a walk and look for Pokemon, and I finished listening to the entire audiobook in like an hour. It is a short book. I did not know that it was that short. Damn. But anyway, I found it kind of hard to relate to anything other than battles. I know a lot of people relate it to like business endeavors and all kinds of things, but I didn't really like see that at all. I kind of just thought like, okay, so now I know what kind of spies to employ in these different situations, and I know how to set fire to my enemy's foodstuffs, even though even though, you know, in today's world, that's probably not the best way to take advantage of anybody. It's not gonna work that well. Maybe it worked in ancient China, but not anymore. Um, and also, speaking of foodstuffs, I should point out just how funny it is that this book really used the word foodstuffs like way too much, and that kind of made me laugh every time. But anyway, those are the books that I read in August. I'm sorry there were not that many. I am in the middle of like 4 books right now, so right now as I'm filming this, there are still a couple days left in August. It's totally possible I'll finish one of them by the end of the month, but if I do, it'll just be in my September wrap-up, so whatever. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!